lot of space here, guys. You can sit down.
Come on, there's space for everyone.
And now people are coming. So, hi. I'm very happy that so many of you came here today. As some of you might already know, we're doing entech MEETUP for the first time in Essen. So I'm very happy to see some familiar faces and some new faces here. My name is Vaiva. I'm from Agile Accelerator. And for those who have already been to one of the meetups, they're probably going to know the procedure. So we start with a little Q&As. So me and our speaker Artur would know who are we talking to. So I'm going to just ask you now, raise the hand. How many of you are working in a startup? How many of you are working for a corporate? How many of you are CEOs of the startups? Okay. How many of you has ever heard of Agile Accelerator? You're doing a good marketing. How many of you have heard of Eon? Okay. Who work at Eon from these people here? So guys, for the startup people, these might be your potential investors. For those who do not know what Agile Accelerator is, I'm going to make a very, very short introduction. So Agile Accelerator is a corporate accelerator and incubator of Eon. We actually started in 2013 as an internal program, and the main idea of Agile was to foster innovation within the company. And actually, really quickly, we realized that it's not really working like that. So in 2014, we opened our doors to external startups, and there are over 100 startups that we accelerated since then. Currently, we have 24 startups in the program, and interestingly, this is our onboarding week. So the guys who are starting with Agile can wave now. See, these are the new faces. They just joined, so they're starting the accelerator class right now. I guess that would be a good time for you to meet the previous startups from the program later on in the networking part. And we work with energy-related startups, and since already, as I said, 4 years, we had a whole bunch of startups in the program. And what is really important for us is to have a very good idea, to have an innovative startup in the program, and of course to have a really good team. So those who are in the program already know that really for us one of the biggest criteria is to have a strong team. And as we believe in a strong team, we also try to have a strong team of Agile side. And for that reason, I would like quickly to introduce the team of Agile and just for them to come on the stage or actually introduce themselves. We're going to have a networking part to talk to the guys a bit more later. So as I said, my name is Vaiva. I'm from Agile Accelerator. I'm responsible for PR and communications. Also for the entech meetup, together with, of course, the whole team. If you do want to be a speaker or want to get involved more, then you can come to me.
Hi all, my name is Magdalena. I'm responsible within Agile for accounting, controlling, and also organizing events like this. So despite checking invoices and controlling our cost center, I'm also responsible for organizing events like this and also to order drinks and food. So if you have any suggestions for this, please feel free to come to me later. And what I really like about working for Agile is that you meet a lot of different people and you learn a lot, not only for your business life, but also for your personal life.
Hi, my name is Maria. You all have met me. I'm the annoying one asking you to scroll all through your emails in order to find the ticket and scan the QR code. So yeah, we met. And in Agile, I am supporting my name twin, who's not here tonight, or today, it's daylight, well, in the portfolio management and scouting process. Also, I'm trying to help with the events, and I'm involved in the strategic planning.
So, hi guys, my name is Christian. Sorry for my voice. I had a little cold since weekend. Yes, I'm a new intern since 2 weeks, yes. I like that job very a lot because it's I love the management styles, and it's great to meet there because you are at your first point you feel like a full member, and yes, I hope I have a very, very good time there, and for any questions you can come to me, I'm a lawyer.
I have a problem.
I think that's all I can say now.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marco. I can understand Christian is very blinding here the light, so you can't focus very well. Oh, yeah, okay, the letters in my face, so great. Yeah, I'm the guy in Agile, so my name is John, I'm responsible in Agile for marketing and analytics, all campaigns, and also one of the guys who's annoying you as well. I'm annoying you with Eventbrite invitations and Facebook invitations, and like everything, share everything for you, also responsible for visuals and also for the Facebook live stream that is running now. So if you later want to get a resume of that, you can watch it on our timeline. So I wish us a very nice evening.
So this day is a bit different than the others. So this entech meetup, not only because we're doing it in Essen for the first time, as I mentioned, also because we have our chat colleagues. For the first time, Alex joining our entech meetup. And before we start, big thanks to the MEETUP band for hosting us here today, and I really wish you a very nice evening. And now we actually finally go to the real star of today, which is Artur. Artur, thank you that you're here, and I don't even think that I need to really do an introduction for him because he can do it much better himself.
Thank you. Yeah, hello everyone, good evening. My name is Artur Löwen. I'm the CEO of Gridhound, a spin-off of the Eon Energy Research Center at RWTH Aachen. This research center is one of the biggest research centers in academia in Europe for the topic of grid automation. Today I want to take you on a journey through the world of artificial intelligence in power distribution grids. But before I start, may I ask, who has no knowledge of artificial intelligence? Who has some knowledge of artificial intelligence? And who has advanced knowledge of artificial intelligence? Great, at least some are here. Then the same for power grids or power distribution grids especially. Who has no knowledge of power distribution grids? Who has some knowledge about power distribution grids? And who has advanced knowledge? Okay, it's a very good mix of all. So then let's start. First, who are we? We are energy revolutionists, a highly qualified team with strong competencies in power systems, software development, and economics, supported by artificial intelligence. So this is obviously also one of our competencies. The mission of Gridhound is to accelerate the energy transition. We want to have an efficient power distribution grid operation with innovative software solution. And the focus is on the economic viability and sustainability, but not only for us, but especially for our customers. So what is our motivation here? I'm sure we all heard about the challenges of the ongoing energy transition. The grids were never designed for distributed generation of renewable energy or for e-mobility. A practical example. In Bavaria, there are over 265,000 photovoltaic units. Most of them are connected in the distribution grid. So on a very good sunny day during noon, they can easily overload the medium voltage grid. Another example, 8 engineers, 8 Teslas. all on one street. What happens if they come home after work and all want to charge their car at once? That doesn't work. So what happens if these challenges are not solved? Is it something the end customer will notice? Sadly, yes it is. In Germany, we still have the highest reliability in the grid worldwide, and we are used to the permanent availability of power. The distribution system operators, the DSOs, do their best to fulfill their duty of a secure, reliable, and efficient grid operation. But current solutions don't solve all the problems. Either they lack the flexibility for extension, they don't provide grid transparency, or if they do, they need a huge number of measurements. This is not affordable. But how shall the DSOs operate the grid if they don't know what is going on? So let me introduce to you the classical approach to grid transparency, which is currently done in the transmission system, so high and extreme high voltages. It uses a digital grid model and a significant number of feed measurements to estimate the state of the grid. What is meant by state? It can be, for example, the voltage level, or the current, or the power flow, things like this. But looking at distribution grids, they are more than 10 times bigger, have no measurements installed usually, and often not even a digital grid model is present. This is really a big challenge. So let's take a look at the history of state estimation in power grids. First, they were introduced in 1969, and they used this so-called, they need an overdetermined equation system and a huge number of measurements, as I already said. So in a grid of around 100 nodes, we would need at least 33 to 40 nodes equipped with measurements. This is extremely expensive and economically not feasible at all for the big distribution grid, as each single measurement point equals a 5-figure in hardware and installation costs. To reduce the number of measurements, researchers try to replace real measurements with so-called pseudo-measurements that are artificially generated to avoid hardware and installation investments. Sometimes they are taken from historical data or measurements, but most of the time this is not available. This process requires, of course, more computational resources, and is not always accurate enough. Then they try to further improve it by using machine learning to improve the forecast accuracy. This approach is, of course, a little bit more efficient, but still not really economically feasible. At around 2012, there was a meeting with the DSO who told our professor they really need grid monitoring due to several problems they have due to ongoing changes in the use of the electrical power. As a professor, a power system engineer, is quite affine to computer science, he thought maybe we can solve this issue with machine learning. And so our journey began. So let's look at the topics. Let me introduce you what is AI, what is machine learning, and what is deep learning. I think everyone heard the term artificial intelligence before. After all, it's very popular focus in movies such as The Terminator, The Matrix, and Ex Machina. But you may have recently been hearing about other terms like machine learning and deep learning, sometimes used interchangeably with artificial intelligence. As a result, the difference between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning can be very unclear. It is difficult to exactly define and confine the term artificial intelligence. Basically, it's about automation of human behavior, decision making, and decision making. John McCarthy coined the term artificial intelligence as early as 1956 and defined it as AI involves machines that can perform tasks that are characteristics of human intelligence. By the way, John McCarthy was an American computer scientist and cognitive scientist and one of the founders of the discipline of artificial intelligence. And as a side project, he also developed the Lisp programming language family. While this definition is rather general, it includes things like planning, understanding language, recognizing objects and sounds, learning, and problem solving. We can put AI basically in two categories: general on the one side and narrow on the other side. General AI would have all of the characteristics of human intelligence, including the capacities mentioned before, but that is still a very long way to go. Narrow AI exhibits only some facets of human intelligence and can do that facet extremely well, but is lacking in other areas. A machine that's great at recognizing images but nothing else would be an example of narrow AI. Now, what is machine learning? Machine learning is the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. This was defined by Arthur Samuel in 1959, and he also coined the term machine learning. He was an American pioneer in the field of computer gaming and artificial intelligence. So machine learning is simply a way of achieving AI. And in the context of machine learning, the word learning describes an automatic search process for a better representation of the data you are analyzing and studying. A better way to look at data. It is not actually making a computer learn. So that might be a little bit misleading. Deep learning is one of the many approaches to machine learning. In deep learning, we have an input set, like a pile of images. Then we need to define the features based on which they should be recognized. And in deep learning, this is automated, while in normal learning, machine learning, this has to be done manually. Deep learning is using artificial neural networks. So, for example, if you look at this puppies versus muffins, this is really a very good example where features have to be clearly specified, otherwise these pictures can easily be mistaken. Even for the human eye, this can be a challenge, or for the human brain. So let's take a closer look at artificial neural networks. Deep learning was inspired by the structure and function of the brain, namely the interconnection of many neurons. Artificial neural networks, or short ANNs, are algorithms that mimic this biological structure of the brain. In ANNs, there are neurons which have discrete layers and connections to other neurons. Each layer picks out a specific feature to learn, such as curves or edges in image recognition. It is this layering that gives deep learning its name. Depth is created by using multiple layers as opposed to a single layer, and they can better map nonlinear relations. A very good example for deep learning are translation, for example by Google on deepl.com on the website, or the autopilot in the Tesla cars. They all solve problems that are too complex and too nonlinear to be solved by simple neural networks. What we have seen for deep learning is applicable both for regression and classification. But what does it mean? Regression is used to predict a continuous value. For example, a value between 0 and 1. Classification is used to predict which class a data point is part of. So it's a discrete value. It can be either 0 or 1. Nothing in between. Most of the time, machine learning is used for classification, for example, for image recognition. Is it a muffin or is it a puppy? And there are other examples like speech recognition, face detection, translation, search result ranking like at Google, ad displays, at Facebook, and the list goes on and on and on. In this example, classification separates the triangles from the circles, while the regression predicts the next value in this nonlinear curve. So connecting back to our work, we use regression as we don't want to only know whether a measured value, like the voltage, is in or outside its expected and legally set range, but we really want to know what is the exact value of the voltage. Now that I have set the scene, let's take a few steps. How does Gridhound get accurate results using machine learning? It is not important that it can read all the text, but I think it should be pretty good to read. The difficulty is that each problem is unique. It requires different data sources, features, algorithms, algorithm configurations, and on and on. The solution is to use a checklist that guarantees a good result every time. We use it to structure our search for the right combination of elements to reliably deliver a good solution to any machine learning problem. This list only shows the very basic outlook of things to do and is by no means complete. Now, as an example, picking one of the tasks from the previous checklist, how did we select our algorithms? We use an approach like this. First, we need to make sure we have enough samples, because the number of samples is very important for machine learning and especially artificial neural networks. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to do something meaningful at all. Next, we have to decide what results we want to have. Do we want to predict a category? If yes, is it labeled? Then we can choose classification algorithms. If it's not labeled, we need to go for clustering. If we don't want to have a category, but we want to predict a quantity, then if it's not a quantity, things get really difficult. This is a topic for another time. But if we want to actually predict a quantity, then we can go on. Then we are actually in the field of regression. Depending on the number of samples there are, we have some possible choices. In our case, we had less than 100,000 samples and selected artificial neural networks. They are fast to train and to execute, and they don't need a lot of memory for execution or space for storage. And they provide extremely good results in our case. But only multiple layer neural networks allow to map the highly nonlinear relations in the power grid. You remember the classical state estimation from the beginning. It was economically not feasible. To solve this problem, Gridhound developed a very efficient machine learning-based state estimation. It also uses the digital grid model, which in some cases we even have to build from paper. And it uses only a minimum number of field measurements, up to 90% less compared to the traditional approach. And it calculates a very precise state estimation, which is comparable to the traditional approaches. And to achieve this reduction in measurements, each measurement has to provide the maximum amount of information from the grid. Finding the optimal placement is part of our feature selection task. We call it the sensitivity analysis. So let me show you the technological details of the process in a little bit more detail. We start from the digital grid model. Then we partition the grid model into zones. Each zone is a different voltage level, for example. We have the medium voltage level, we have the low voltage level, we have the high voltage level. And within each of these levels, normally some part of the system is not interconnected to its neighboring part, so this is a separate zone. Next, we generate randomized profiles for all loads and generators. Loads are like houses, industry, whatever. And generators are, for example, solar panels on the roof. And then we set this profile to the range of 0 to 200%, basically as a source of creating changes or disturbances in the grid that we want to recognize and that we want to learn from. Then, for each of the zones, we do thousands of load flow calculations. Basically, we want to see where is the energy flowing. If I have a PV generation unit, is the energy consumed locally, like in the next house, or a few next houses, or do I have so much PV generation that is basically flowing all the way backwards from the low voltage to the medium voltage grid, even to the high voltage grid? We store the simulation output for training. Then we do our sensitivity analysis, or the feature selection as it's called in machine learning. We basically try to find out which are the most sensitive nodes in the grid, which give us the most information. And if we get the nodes with the most information, we can basically reduce the number of required measurements to a minimum, because we already get the maximum of information. Then we can generate a recommendation for measurement location. Measurements or sensors have to be in the grid for us to work. Most of the time, there are no measurements in the grid. So we can provide the DSO a list of recommendations and tell them, go in the field and place your sensors there, place them there, place them there.
Can I ask one question? So this partitioning into the zone, is it the concept of decentralized instance?
Not really. We can maybe discuss later about how it is in detail. Yeah, so sometimes it's not possible to actually install sensors in the recommended locations. Then the DSO will select the next recommended location in the priority list until we have enough data to achieve the accuracy that the DSO is targeting at. And then we use this list of actual measurement locations and we start to do our machine learning. Basically taking the nodes that we have measurements on as an input and all the nodes that we don't measure as an output. This input and output data is coming from the simulation that we have done over there. And then from this we can, or the machine learning, finds a very good representation of the relation between the input and the output. This results in a so-called trained neural network. Then we take the measurements from the field, live measurements, and we can calculate our state estimation. Based on the state estimation, we can do monitoring, generate alarms if some thresholds are passed or whatever. This package enables us to revolutionize grid monitoring. This is the first time in history that full grid transparency in distribution grids becomes affordable. We provide grid transparency in real time. From that, valuable and actionable information are gained for safe, reliable, and efficient grid operation, so intelligent algorithms enable the full grid automation in the end. We improved our approach with Bayernwerk in this case study. As a first step, it was done in a simulation environment. The second step, a live field trial, is in preparation right now. We used our feature selection, or grid sensitivity analysis as we call it, to recommend the placement of measurements in the grid. In the next step, we trained the algorithm on the grid. This is the grid model that was used. 550 nodes in medium voltage, in 20 kilovolts voltage range. A few generation units on the medium voltage level, a few loads, and 180 low voltage section. We selected only 10 measurement locations. This is around about 1.8% of the grid cover. You remember in the beginning we talked about 33 to 40%. That would be a minimum of 165 to up to 220 nodes measurement points in this case instead of 10. And as I mentioned before, each measurement point equals a 5-figure installation and setup cost. Here we see the estimation results. As they are all, or predictions as they are called in machine learning for the marked test point. The black lines in this chart are the simulated value, while the colored lines are the estimated value. They nearly fully overlap, which shows a very high accuracy in the estimation.
Estimation of how back or forward goes this estimation? Is it like 1 hour in advance or 1 day?
It's actually estimating the state right now in time. It's not a forecasting, which can of course be done on that, but it's estimating the state, the current state.
How did you check it? Check these numbers. So using time units against?
We use, for example, in this case, we use the simulation, which gave us the true value, and then the estimation, which gave us the colored values here. Yeah. Here, zooming in a bit, we have 50 test samples. An estimation or prediction is typically qualified by the error from the true value. And here we see the black, again, are from the simulation, and the red values are from the estimation. And as they nearly all are very close together, you can see there's a very good accuracy. We have an average error of less than 0.02%, and a maximum error in this case of 0.26%. And we have the graph showing the error distribution in this case. And as you see, there's a very big spike in the middle. This means most of the estimations or predictions are very, very good on point. We evaluated different cases to see how our approach performs in different circumstances. On the left side, we assume the measurements are all in optimal locations, while in the second, on the right side, we only have the first 5 measurements at the optimal location and the other 5 points in a less optimal location. But as we can see here, only the maximum error increased slightly. The average error even was smaller as in the first case. Then we halved the number of measurements. And again, in the second case, we have less optimal placements. We see there's a slight increase as well in the average as the maximum error, but still, overall, the results are quite good. In the last case, we took only one single measurement location. We wanted to see what happens if we only have a single one. We see the error is increasing indeed, but not by very much. Here is a comparison of all 6 cases. We see the output quality depends on the number and location of the measurements. So we have here 10 measurements, 5 measurements, 1 measurement. Optimal location, less optimal location. Optimal, less optimal. Yeah.
So the advantage here is that you need to have less measurements.
We have less measurements and we have less strict requirements on the location of the measurements. Yeah, here we have all the numbers for the mean error and the absolute error and so on. But this is not so important right now. So as a conclusion, we see that we could prove our approach. We provided great results with very few measurements. The output is comparable to the classical state estimation. The result, of course, depends not only on the grid model quality that we use for the simulation, but also on the number of measurement points, the location of the measurement points, and the type of the measurements we are using. For example, in the best case, we use the voltage magnitude and the voltage phase angle. If we don't get that, we could, for example, also use the active and reactive power flow. But the results will be a little bit worse than in the first case. In the future, we will set our focus on further analysis, action recommendation, and full automation of the grid. Our vision is to not only develop an advanced, but an active distribution management systems for the distribution system operators. Regarding machine learning, we are using classification for fault detection in self-healing grid concepts, and Also, other machine learning algorithms, for example, for forecasting for the next 5 minutes, next hour, next few days. I hope you enjoyed this journey through the world of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and its application in power distribution systems. For people afraid of artificial intelligence, I want to close with a quote from the IBM Chief Execution Officer, Virginia Rometty. She said, "Some people call this artificial intelligence, but the reality is this technology will enhance us. So instead of artificial intelligence, I think we will augment our intelligence." Thank you for listening. Now, if you have any questions.
Yeah. Any questions regarding the project, data?
So, what question does it optimize? So it's so you need to learn the system, to teach the system to do the machine learning. You need to have all these measurement points.
Not for teaching.
For machine learning process, you need to have.
For the execution of the estimation, we need those measurements from the field. Yes.
And for to creating this model.
The grid model has to be given to us by the distribution system operator, and he has to decide at which points he can measure. Then we can already do the training before we actually have the measurements in the field.
And in one example, you said that you can have only one, that the system works only with one measurement point.
Yeah.
You can work with one measurement point. But to train the system, you need to have all, for example, the 60 measurement points.
No. Maybe I can go back a little bit to this one.
Yeah.
We start with a grid model, or maybe this is. Then we do the partitioning, and then we do the load flow calculations. From this output and from the measurement locations, either the recommendation or the actual measurement location, we can do the machine learning.
Exactly.
Because we have to define what is the input for the training and what is the output, because we want to establish the relation between input and output. It's a highly nonlinear relation in this case, but there is a relation.
Yeah, so at that moment you need to have all, you cannot have only one measurement location.
Yes, we can.
But you already use some historical data together with the measurement.
We use here the simulation output. We have done load flow calculations that included all the nodes in the grid.
So you do multiple load flow calculations?
Thousands of them.
Where you change the variables and then you get them?
Yeah, and from this results from the load flow calculation, we decide what is input, what is output. So we have a full set of data of everything that is happening in the, or can happen in the grid. But we only need to determine what is the relation between some of the points and the others.
Can you give us an example of the difference in price from one measurement point, like conventional, and yours?
We can work with conventional measurement points. The measurement points are not actually the unique thing here. The unique thing is the software that can use this existing or new measurements. Of course, there can be different kinds of measurements, really the traditional ones or new devices, whatever. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we take this measurement and then we do some magic on it, and we can get some results. Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yogesh, and I work with Eon in energy flexibility business. So I have a question related to flexibility. So I want to understand your opinion as right now flexibility business exists on TSO level, and in future it will be coming to the TSO level at the distribution grid. So what kind of your understanding or your opinion is on like state estimation can give some important value for the TSO for the flexibility market?
I think in the future it will be very, very important that the DSO will be able to somehow influence devices that provide flexibility to the grid. For example, if we look at Bavaria, my example from the beginning, 265,000 photovoltaic units. We need to do something with this power. This shouldn't go to waste. I mean, this would be just stupid wasting energy, right? So, what should we do? If we cannot push this energy back to the transmission system, which is in 80% of the cases the thing, there is no capacity left in the transmission system. So, either we shut down the generation units, or we find flexibility in the grid. This is where it gets interesting. If we, for example, have a variable power price over the day, then we could incentivize customers to wash their clothes during noon, to consume the energy that we're generating, or to activate the heating system, to consume all this power and store it for later in the evening. This is where I think the flexibility is needed.
Okay, so my question was how state estimation is going to do at the DSO level
Okay.
in terms of flexibility?
I think the state estimation can give you an idea on the actual capacity usage in the grid, the utilization of the grid. From that, you or the DSO can decide in which parts of his grid he might want to change the power price or the fee that he is giving to the customers. I know in Germany this is from a regulational point of view still a very challenging topic, but I especially hope that in the future this can be solved and we get the flexibility that we need to continue with the ongoing energy transition and to make it efficient and economically viable.
And one more question on top of that. So right now, distribution grid is enhancing in terms of decentralized energy segment. So are your algorithm is covering centralized, decentralized, both?
We can basically work in any environment because we're breaking down the grid into the zones. The zones can be islands, connected microgrids, or grid cells, however you want to call them, or the traditional concepts of connected to the transmission system. Doesn't really matter for the approach.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I work for Aon. So I have two questions, and one is based on what you just said about needing smart meters, basically, to help you kind of process this data as a consumer. And as far as I know, the rollout of smart meters is not so huge in Germany, but maybe more so in the UK. Is there sort of more potential there because more people have them? And then the second question would be, I see that you're working with Bayernwerk, and as Aon, we also have 3 other sort of regional distribution units. And are you working with them, or is there a plan to sort of expand?
There are definitely plans for expansion, of course.
Hopefully an easy question.
Actually, we tried to do pilots with all of them, but then we always got the same answer. You're doing a trial with Bayernwerk. Let's wait how it works. If you're successful there, then we will make probably a rollout everywhere. So we don't need to do additional pilots at the other ones because they will be convinced from the results that we have from Bayernwerk. Regarding the smart meters, I think there's a big potential in the UK, also in other countries. For example, we will be testing our concept in Italy. It's starting soon, I think in the next weeks or months. The trial will start there. Also, we're working in Ireland in a field trial. So, yeah, and hopefully soon we will get the 3 certified smart meter gateways so we can start the smart meter rollout in Germany. Then for the smart meter rollout, there are rules which consumers or prosumers should get the smart meters first. So the list of recommended locations will not apply. But that doesn't matter for us. We will take any location. And if there are a few more measurements than we actually need, the better. We can verify or validate our output or use more measurements as an input.
I think that was it. Oh, sorry.
Go far here.
And how are you which plans do you have to work together with another companies in order to share information? For example, I know with prosumers or with PV system operators or with homes systems. Have you have a plan to work together with them to get this information in order to interchange information in order to become partners?
We have ideas, of course. Thing is, we are on the one side in a very regulated market. On the other side, it's the decision of the DSOs whether they want to do this or not. This is not really ours to decide or to do something with the data, because every data we get from the DSOs is under an NDA. So it's really up to them, or whether they're able to, from the regulation point of view, to do something with the data. But I know I've talked to energy traders, and they said if I get a 15-minute forecast from the DSO for the grid usage and whether or not my wind farm will be able to inject power or not, this can make a difference in millions. Yeah, so there's interest, there's a business case. Let's see how it works out in the field.
I have one question regarding the scalability of your model, because you said this model that you validated with BioNTech was like 500 nodes. The question is probably some DSOs have much more buses.
This 550 nodes are 0.02% of the BioNTech grid.
Yes. So the question is, what is the scalability of your model?
It's very easy, because the zones that we're talking about are not really that big. They might be double or triple the size, but that's it. And each of these zones can be looked at separately. So if we have thousands of them, then we put just a few more machines, a few more servers. Easy.
So which means you solve the zones always separately?
Yeah,
from one another.
yeah.
And then how do you get an overall solution of the whole grid? How do you put them together?
We just feed all the data into the same system in the end. For example, the SCADA system or whatever. And then you have all the data available.
Okay. And when you are running the whole system, because this one was simulation, you were not doing it in real time.
Yeah.
When you are running the whole system in real time, you would probably need to collect some of the data from the SCADA system, because there are some measurement points at some locations.
Yeah, I don't know that, or directly from the measurement locations themselves.
Okay, but how is it? Is this transferred wide through the cloud, or how do you get the data?
We think, or what we got as a feedback from the DSOs, they don't want to have two separate systems. So we plan to augment their existing system with our solution. So wherever the data is coming from, it is going to their SCADA system anyway. So if we connect to the SCADA system or sit in front of the SCADA system, then we will always get the data at the same point where the SCADA system is getting it. Then it goes through our algorithm and will be fed back to the SCADA system.
The DSO will allow you to fetch the data before it goes to their SCADA system?
Why not? It can be also parallel. The measured values can go directly to the SCADA system, while all the other values are brought to the SCADA system, for example, as virtual sensors or simulated sensors.
Okay, another question. Sorry. So when you are doing this kind of estimation, as you said, you run multiple power flow simulation, AC power flow, I assume.
Yeah.
And what is the number of simulations you have to run in order to get a good estimation that you can work with?
Yeah, we're now per zone 1,000 simulations.
That's
all.
Enough.
Yeah, and for each single simulation run, we vary the generation and the consummation of the power. This is what we are doing here with the randomized profiles. They go into this load flow simulations. So in each cycle, the state of the grid will be different, and from these differences, we understand how does the grid behave if one load changes, if one generation changes. How's the reaction from the grid side?
Okay. No, sorry. So when you have estimated the grid, so it's just the state of the grid, you have the voltages, the reactive power, active power, phase angles. But typically, the TSO would also like to have a look ahead. So what happens, like if I have the state now, you can use that state as an initial state to run maybe a 24-hour simulation to see if my wind is blowing so and so, if I have this generation or whatever, the solar panels, how do I have to react as a TSO? Do you currently do also using the state estimation? Do you also do a look ahead simulation then for the TSO or?
Not yet, but this is the very next step that we're doing, forecasting.
Okay. And in this forecasting, you're going to run, it's part of the in this forecasting, are you going to run transient or you do a steady state? A quasi-steady state?
Yeah, quasi-steady state.
Thank you.
Don't forget, we're also going to have the networking part later on. And I
Yes,
saw
there was a question I had there for a long time.
Which one?
So I think I will step back from the technical part and go more to the expansion opportunities. I think we touched the UK smart meter rollout and everything. I'm from the Czech entity, so I'm interested in maybe bringing a use case from your side to Czech Republic. Have you already checked the opportunities in the regulatory situation in the neighbor countries of Germany?
No, we haven't. Right now we want to start with German references as a starting point because we are in the country of energy transition. That is what we are really famous for. So as a German company, we should have the reference in Germany. Starting from that, of course, we will look into our neighboring countries, but the regulation is quite a big topic, so we would need partners that can explain to us how the regulation works in other countries and how we can make a business case with our solution for other users.
Okay, great. So I wish you good luck with everything, and then we will talk in a few months, probably.
Okay, sure.
So now I really saw the question at the front.
So I was wondering, once the neural network is trained and you have big changes in the grid, is it capable of like processing them in real time, or do you have to make it forget and train it really with new data, or is it really able to do it every time?
We will get results, but if we have big changes, of course, those results will not be good anymore. We just need to retrain. If we get the changes in a new grid model, we can put it into the system, it will automatically regenerate, retrain, and then we're good to go again.
But then you need to know ahead. So like, let's say someone, like a lot of people decide to have like solar energy and they want to put it in the grid. Like you would have to know, and neural network doesn't know, kind of.
Yeah, that gets a little bit difficult. I mean, if we have enough measurements in the grid, we might be able to extract this information and learn it from the field. But if we don't have enough measurements, this might be very, very difficult. And as far as I know, in Germany, starting from a certain size of the PV system, where it actually matters for us as well, they have to be registered with the DSO. So in that case, we will know ahead.
I'm Dieter, my name, working for a consulting company, quite engaged a lot with asset management projects. But now a completely non-technical question. How are you, the Gridhound startup, is observed or seen by big elephants competitors like PSI, Siemens, SAP, and all this? What is your competitive advantage against their power if these kind of companies, for example Siemens, who's quite active within the grid, any kind of power level, and how are you seen and how do you keep your speed or your competitive advantage if you say you want to revolutionize the this kind of smart solution?
How are we seen? I think there are two fields. On the one side, we have some who think that what we do doesn't really matter. Actually, I think they're still living in the old world. They haven't caught up to reality yet. On the other side, we have the ones who say, okay, what you're doing is interesting. We cannot do it ourselves right now. Let's work together. This is, for example, the case with PSI. Yeah, and what was the second part of your question?
No. Let me ask the second question. if you say, the first slide was about the team. If you say, I think, okay, Germany energy transition market, quite important, but I think going abroad, you mentioned Italy, Ireland. How do you handle, how do you increase your team in that? What are the plans in that area to keep pace or keep how do you handle if then you will be asked quite a lot about pilots in the next? Because I have two ideas for you, but you're not in Germany.
I mean, on the one side, we still have a very close connection to the university, Artur Löwen Aachen, and from there we can get students and we can get very well trained people. But on the other side, of course, we need to hire them as the same as everyone else. I think the interesting thing is, as a startup, we don't have this corporate hierarchy and corporate typical work environment, which can be quite interesting for a specific sort of people. And of course, we will try to attract them to us. I mean, we are working in a very innovative field, although it's somehow coming from a very traditional area or traditional concept, but with this we can bring new wind, as we say in German. I don't know if this translates well into English. Can bring new wind into the area, and I think people who like innovation and like being a front runner, they would be quite interested to participate in our movement, let's call it, to work on this.
Maybe last technical question. So, if I got that correctly, the error or loss function you're evaluating against is voltage deviation at the output nodes. And
voltage deviation, yes, this is one of the things.
Okay. So, are deviations weighted equally at each node, or would you make a difference? For example, there's nodes with more sensitive customers.
This could be factored in easily. Right now we're looking at every node the same, but we have thought about this and we can easily factor in a different weight.
So, first of all, absolutely thank you for spending your almost an hour here on the stage answering all of the questions. I hope Artur will stay a little bit for the networking part, so if you have any private questions regarding Gridhound, you're welcome to talk to him. As far as I remember, he's also a massive fan of Game of Thrones, so that could be another connection point. For now, we're going to start our networking part, so we have some drinks, we still have some food. Please help yourself. And thank you again for coming. We're going to have the next meetup next month as always. I hope I'm going to see the same faces and hopefully new faces there. And if you have an energy-related idea and you want to have success just as Artur does, please come and talk to us. And thank you again for today.